Hi, I'm Rachel Abbasi. Welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. As always, thanks for spending time with me. Hey, welcome to the final episode of 2025. And what I want to talk about today is making progress. And this theme is really a collaboration. That's not the right word. Is you know, of a bunch of topics that have come up over the past week or so. And so every day I get an email, like I'm trying to find my words right now. There's an email that you can get called Today's Gift from Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. So if you go to the Hazelden website and you sign up for Today's Gift, it provides some great, like, just inspiring messages for the day. And I was introduced to this through a friend in my sobriety program, but I have found that it's like really helpful in all recovery. All like we're here to make our lives better, right? So I just happen to have gone through a stroke and addiction. I have anxiety issues. I have an anxiety disorder and depression. So I take medication for that. And I come here to try to talk about my experience, strength, and hope, talk about what things I struggle with, and I try to translate them into like, rather than what maybe a psychiatrist would say or a doctor would say, I'm just talking about what it feels like so that my hope is that people who are listening can identify and be like, yeah, I felt that way too. The goal is to know that we're not unique. And so any resources that I come across that feed that desire to communicate, that way of healing and connecting with other people, I try to share that. So this email, Today's Gift, is one that I most recently signed up for, and I've been finding it to be, I don't know, inspiring. So the email this morning opened up with making progress, and it had a quote that is by Anonymous, and it says, "Bring the body and the mind will follow." And I thought, that's really nice as a closing episode. And so I wanted to talk about that, what it's been like for me, and also some of the topics that have come up in some of my meetings, and just as I've been interacting with family and the holiday, and there's a lot of reflection that starts happening for me towards the end of the year. I mentioned 2 days ago that I'm not one to have New Year's resolutions. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like throughout the year, I should always be open to change. So if I'm approaching the new year and I'm like, yeah, this year I'm gonna fill in the blank, then I'm gonna, if I'm really into it, like if I'm really committed to whatever that change is, I'm gonna start right then and there. I'm not gonna wait for the new year. So I want to talk about progress in the way of progress is movement forward, and progress does not have a speed limit. So that's one of the reasons why I want to start things when it comes to me well, I want to write this book, and I'm really challenged to sit down and do it. And I think the what I can't think of words today. Sorry. Oh my gosh. The thing that's blocking, we're going to work around the word that I can't think of. The thing that is blocking me is that I know if I sit down to write my book, that my head is going to hurt. So I need to find a way around, I need to work within my limitations. So the fact that I went to lunch with the authors club in my new neighborhood, which was super exciting, is progress. Even though I didn't pick up the book yet, I mean, I've already written a couple chapters of it, but it's forward progress because I'm putting myself around people that will inspire. And so if you are looking forward to the new year and you're like, this is what I'm going to do. I have a New Year's resolution. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to be more in touch with self-help stuff. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to, whatever. I'm going to see a psychiatrist, whatever it is, whatever your thing is that you're looking forward to doing, you have already made forward progress by subscribing to this podcast. And so it's important to it's important to me to reward myself for the tiniest little things because it's like the tiniest little things in my life can totally upset me, can piss me off, can make me cry, can get that battlefield between my ears, you know, just going crazy. And so to counteract that, it's important for me to acknowledge little tiny successes in my life. And that is progress. That's forward movement. Um, Forward movement is not competitive. Like we can't there was a lady in my authors club who said she wrote the first draft of her book in 4 months. And I was like, what the hell? This is not the right book club for me. But then I looked around at the other ladies and they were like, that's really fast. And so I turned to this young woman. She was younger than me. She was the only one in the authors club that was younger than me. And I turned to her and I was like, do you have a job? And it kind of like fell out of my mouth. But I meant it like lightheartedly. And she said no. So she had a job and she did, I guess she retired from that job or something and decided to go down this route of writing a book. It's none of my business, but that I think has become her job. And that's why her forward movement was really fast. But that doesn't mean that mine has to be at that same speed. So I can make my forward progress slow if I want to. I can make, and honestly, I feel like slow forward progress is wiser forward progress. That I'm gonna be able to really learn from my steps as I go forward in my life. Progress is action. It feels like when I stop and I look back at how far I've come, and I've been doing that a lot over the past few days. Yesterday, for example, the reason why I didn't record yesterday, my niece came into town. My niece is one of our listeners, and I just adore her. Hi, Em. And she came into town, and we decided to go to a consignment store. So those of you who are longtime listeners, lifetime listeners, you are very aware that I have an extremely difficult time going to a store. My disorder, for those of you who are new, we've got like over 100 new subscribers in the past couple weeks. So I might go in and introduce a few parts of my story just for the newcomers. But I will do an episode maybe tomorrow or something that is really just my story so that newcomers have an idea of what it is that I suffer with. But those of you who are lifetime listeners know that I have a hard time going to stores that I can't browse. So my disorder from my stroke limits my ability to move my eyes because it makes me sick. It makes me nauseous. I have had a headache every day since my stroke in June of 2021, which is why I wear these fancy glasses. And it did something, it disconnected in some way my the way that my brain processes movement, visual movement. So I can't drive. I have to close my eyes in the car. I can only walk a certain amount, a distance. I've gotten up to a mile and a half, but a mile is kind of my sweet spot before that movement of the ground and my surroundings starts to make me sick. So, lots of things. I don't watch TV. I can't scroll on my phone. So I've been left to medically retire from my job and all of that fun stuff. But we went to this consignment store yesterday and I get a little excited. I'm kind of excitable. I'm like a chihuahua. And I went into this consignment store and I'm like, as soon as we walked in, I went to the purses and the first price tag I looked at was like $60 for a purse. And I was like, what the hell kind of consignment store is this? But then I started looking at the brands and like much of the brands, many of the brands were designer. And I thought, well, maybe this is too high dollar consignment for me. But we looked around and I ended up finding some good things that I needed, specifically my long sleeve shirt that I have on today. Everything was like brand new. This is like a Land's End long sleeve shirt. And yeah, so anyway, I got a bunch of stuff. What's my point? The point is that I was able to browse. Um, Now, I have learned from vestibular therapy how to browse, how to accommodate for my disorder and browse with less pain. For example, I kind of back up from the gosh, words are really difficult today. Where all the shirts are, I will like back up and look and see if there's a color that interests me. And then if there is, then I will go in and look at that shirt. What I can't do is like I used to do when I went to Ross. I used to be a big Ross fan. Is like file through the shirts, like no, that's ugly. No, that's I don't like that. I don't like the color, like and go one shirt at a time. I can't do that. That would be I would be throwing up on the floor if I tried to do that. TMI. But what I realized after we were standing at the counter and I was purchasing is that all of a sudden I started feeling sick. All of a sudden, like my head was hurting. And today, like I have sharp pains in my eyes and stuff like that. So I end up paying the price for something that I do even the day before. But I still made forward progress because before my niece and I went to fabric stores and I couldn't even look at the wall with all the fabric because it was too overwhelming for my eyes to see all of those different designs on the wall. I know it's crazy. So it's forward progress. I was able to look at shirts yesterday. And it's kind of weird to even hear myself say that. But that's the kind of slow, wise forward progress. The idea is to make improvements it's not to finish first, you know? What is the destination for me? I'm never going to be the way that I was. Like, just, physically speaking, I have a lot of cells in my brain that have died because of the stroke. Um, I'm never gonna return to that Rachel version 2.0. This is Rachel version 3.0. And if I try to rush my progress, it leaves me in bed for days. Um, if I allow myself to stop and look back and be like, okay, that's where I was, and here's where I am now, that is an action. So recognizing progress is an action. Um, And progress that we acknowledge is progress that lasts and is built deliberately. You know, progress is not dramatic. And often what I hear and actually it applies to sobriety too. It's I remember people starting to say in early sobriety to me, wow, you look really good. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Because the only progress I'm seeing is I cry less or, I'm able to leave the house without shaking, that kind of thing. Because that's how bad it was in the beginning. I couldn't even leave the house. But, what was happening was my appearance was progressively looking healthier. And I didn't notice that until I got to go renew my driver's license. And I looked back at the old driver's license, like when they handed me the new one, and I was floored. I was floored by the difference. I looked alive. I looked happy. I had meat on my face, which I was just very underweight. I had an eating disorder. I had all kinds of stuff that were keeping me from growing and thriving. I had terrible nervous system. It was shot. It's like my nervous system was just misfiring, kind of like I said, I couldn't leave the house, like go to the store, and I was just shaking. Like that anxiety, was not just a mental experience, that battlefield between my ears, but it was a major physical experience. It was torture. It was physical and mental torture. I was constantly trying to rationalize things in my life that I was not capable of rationalizing. I was just burning energy. So when I finally stopped drinking, I had to relearn, my body had to relearn regulation, like regulating my nervous system. And post stroke, my body went through another very shocking event. So, once again, my entire body and mind had to start relearning safety because after my stroke, and I still feel this way, just being honest, that I never feel safe. Wherever I go, there I am. Um, I was afraid after my stroke that it was going to happen again. And I couldn't escape that. And today, I see a psychiatrist every week and we talk about it. We talk about what healing looks like after stroke. And I have a friend in my sobriety program whose husband just had a stroke. And it just, she explained to me what his deficits are, some paralyzed on one side, severe aphasia. And what I think about and what I responded to her with is what damage there is between his emotionally, you know. It's scary, and the the priority of trying to stabilize emotions in addition to stabilizing whatever physically he has left to try to build back that whatever's paralyzed or that aphasia, the things that need to happen in order to start stabilizing, regulating all of this stuff. This is my non-medical terms. It it's progress that is very, very difficult to see, to notice. So when my mind started to feel safer by talking to my psychiatrist, that's when my vestibular disorder began to make progress. I couldn't, I couldn't start getting comfortable with my disability until my mind started to feel safe. And so I feel very strongly that when we're in recovery from anything, I can't stress that enough, from anything, that even if what you're trying to recover from is a physical deficit, there is just as much priority that needs to be given to the mind. Um, so, but what comes first, Like, so the title of this one, or that anonymous quote that I talked about in the beginning, bring the body and the mind will follow. I did need to do that. I had to bring my body to a vestibular therapist, and she didn't start with, okay, walk a straight line and move your head right to left. What she started with is, how do you feel? How does it, how does this make you feel? And that was an incredible realization for me, to talk to her about my fears. I'm afraid to walk and move my head back and forth. I'm afraid of the um, drop syndrome, I think it's called, drop attack. I'm afraid of drop attacks, which for me, from what I've learned about them, is what it feels like for me is all of a sudden I feel like I'm gonna collapse. Like in an instant. I feel like it's like like my brain is a TV set and somebody just turned it off and I'm just gonna fall on the ground. That's what it feels like. But there are some people who it happens, that happens and they do fall. I haven't gotten to that point where I actually fall, but it's scary because it's like for an instant I'm not in control of anything in my body, and that's super scary. So I was afraid to leave the house. And isn't that interesting? That's how it was when I started getting sober. I was afraid to leave the house. When after I had my stroke, I was afraid to leave the house. But they were completely different reasons. It was still a fear that was happening between my ears. So I really had an emotional collapse in both situations. I talk a lot about for you, for newcomers, I talk a lot about how my stroke recovery has mirrored my sobriety recovery. There is this bottom that I reached in both situations. I had an emotional collapse in both situations. I needed that bottom in order to make change, in order to do the thing that I didn't want to do. In sobriety, that was put down the drink and go to AA. In stroke recovery, it was close my computer and don't look back. Meaning I needed to medically retire. I needed to give up everything that I had planned for my life and start over. And that's not what I wasn't starting over. I realized later I was starting where I was. And I have learned over the course of the past 4.5 years since my stroke, I can't believe it's been that long. I have learned that there's a lot of stuff that I experienced before my stroke that I could bring forward with me. I, to be honest with you, there's a lot of things that I experienced before sobriety that I was also able to bring forward with me. So, when we get to the point where where we reach like an emotional collapse or a bottom, know that you don't have to start over. You're starting from where you are. And there's so much that um, so much wisdom that we get to bring forward in these situations, but we have to stop resisting, resisting that change, that thing that we don't want to do. I have found today, and I talk about this a lot, the thing that I don't want to do, the thing that's making me scared or anxious is usually the thing that is going to make a big change in my life. That's going to make me, it's a big lesson. It's going to make me wiser. So I tend to, when I start feeling afraid or nervous, I tend to lean in as soon and as fast as possible into doing the thing that scares me. Because really, for me, I feel less stress for a shorter amount of time if I just get it over with. And that's how I live my life now. And all of this really is a spiritual progress. It's weird because we do these things in recovery and we don't get any quick feedback. We have to trust in the process, and the results are not obvious to us. We need to just be, and do it as honestly as we can. And that honest work compounds very quietly. And what I have needed to do is add faith into that consistency. Um, I don't focus on the intensity of my recovery. I focused on the consistency of my recovery. And sometimes if I try to get more intense, my consistency will fall off. I have been really not very happy with the fact that I haven't been consistent with the podcast over the month of December, but I'm trying to give myself grace for that because what I've been doing is filling up my cup. And with that, I've been expending a lot more energy than I really have to spend. So, I think that I have been leaning more into faith over the month of December, but I really need all of it. Consistency is so important to me. Consistency is why I have hundreds of episodes because that's what good, strong healing is for me. That's a good, strong recovery program for me. If I show up every day in the same way. When I look back now over the past few years, I can see that I've had a lot of courage. When I look at my progress, I see a lot of the pain that I've experienced over the years. And I really like to pause and remember what that felt like, what that pain felt like. Because just like going to my sobriety meetings every day, remembering what that pain felt like is momentum forward for me. Even though I'm looking back, I don't spend too much time looking back. I like to notice how far I've come. It it shows me that healing is that progress is possible. Um, that if I continue to do the same thing that I've been doing, then it's possible to continue my growth. And it gives me a sense of gratitude as well for for what I've been given. I go to bed every night saying my gratefuls and um, giving, gratitude for my sobriety, for not smoking, for the willingness to recover, for my body. And then I say, Thy will be done, not mine. And I've really, over the month of December, have really felt strongly about the gratitude for my body because there's so many things that I can do. And if you go back even a year ago and hear some of those podcast episodes, there's a lot, I talk a lot about what I can't do. I know that I'm not supposed to. Um, I know that I even say in the episode, like, but I need to not focus on what I can't do. I need to focus on what I can do. But I was still focused on it because I was learning, and I was trying to give myself grace. And when I look back, um, I can see that I have not been standing still, even though some days I feel like it. And I think it's important to be honest like that. So, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And with that, the end of the year is never a finish line for me. We're starting a new season tomorrow. And I have a whole new plan. And you guys know that I'm an overachiever, but we have a whole new plan for 2026. And I'm super excited. Some of you may have noticed we have a new opening with cartoon Rachel, which is adorable. I'm just going to put it out there. It's adorable. If you don't watch the video for the podcast, you need to log on to YouTube and look at the opening because it's adorable. And I used some of my old marketing director skills to create that. It took me about a month just because of my disability, but it was really fun. I love doing that kind of thing. So not only do we have a new opening and a new little theme song, but I've also got some great new ideas for 2026. So stay tuned, and I'm wishing you all a very happy new year. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel, like the episode, and we'll see what 2026 brings. So I will see you next time.